Hello everyone, welcome to this session. I've just solved this NEET test 89. This is 12:15 a.m. right now and I'm here with the physics analysis. So as per me, 5 questions are tough, 16 are easy, 24 are medium. Question number 43 has some printing issue. The solution assumes something else, the given things are something else. So all in all, you can say it's a good paper. It's not an easy one because the number of easy questions that I've marked are not very large and the tough questions are also there. Some concepts are actually very good in the paper, so it's not going to be that easy. So if I take the scores, as per me the score, let's say 16 and 12, I assume let's say 28 questions someone does, and that's so 28 questions basically you will have as 112 marks. So anyone getting 115 is good enough, and for very good students it should be 150 plus in this paper also. So that is for me. Today you might feel that I have hurried a lot more than I usually do because I have some urgent work. Tomorrow I have to leave very early in the morning, so I have to sleep by time also and have to solve JEE main paper also. So please pardon me if you feel like so. I'll try to be more clearer in the next one. Today I had some urgency, so I can't help. Okay, so let's first question. Electron is accelerated under potential of V volts and has a certain wavelength lambda. It is known that the mass of proton is about 1800 times the mass of an electron. If proton is to have the same wavelength lambda, then what will be the potential difference by which it should be accelerated? So you know that lambda is h by p or h by root 2 mk and k you write as qv. So for same lambda, what we have for lambda to be same, we can clearly make out that the value q is same, h is same, lambda is same. That means mass of electron into v of electron should be mass of proton into v of proton. So v for proton would be mass of electron upon mass of proton times v, and because proton is 1800 times heavier, there should be v by 1800 volts. Go for option C. So that's not that tough one for you. Next, question number 2. If a be the radius of the first Bohr orbit in hydrogen atom, the radius of the third orbit is, you know, radius is proportional to n square by z. So for the third one it would be proportional to 3 square. So directly I can say it would be 9a. That's again a very easy one. Next, a radioactive nucleus of mass number a initially at rest emits an alpha with speed v. What would be the recoil speed? So from the momentum conservation I can say if this alpha goes here with speed v, the remaining nucleus will go with the speed vr. So the original one has mass a, it will have almost 4, it will have almost a minus 4. So mass ratio would be in the ratio 4 is to a minus 4. So what I can make out that 4 times v should be equal to a minus 4 times vr. So the recoil speed would be 4v upon a minus 4, that we can directly make it out. So going by this option C, again this is a very regular question. Next, you have a shell of 0.020 kg fired by a gun of 100 kg. If the muzzle speed means the speed relative to the gun is 80 meter, what is the recoil speed of the gun? Same question that we did above, the same concept, but here it is the muzzle speed. So what we are given, so let's assume this gun goes with speed vr. So its speed with respect to the gun is 80, so its actual speed would be, what I can write, it would be 80 minus vr if I do the relative thing, because then you can say its relative speed would be 80 with respect to the gun. So what we can write now, so the mass of the shell, which is 0.20, it has the momentum forward 80 minus vr, should be equal to the momentum that the gun has in the backward direction, that is 100 times vr, because external forces are 0 along horizontal, so vcm must be 0. So from here this vr value, if you can solve it out, it will come out as 0.020, okay, 0.020 into 80 upon 100.020, that is what you are going to write. So if I cancel these, this will be 100.020 into 80, that we can write it out. So what we are left with, this is 0 and 0, so 20 into 8 is 160 upon 1002. So approximately you can make it out, it would be, let's say 12340, so it would be 0.016 meter per second. You can say 1.6 centimeter per second. That is going to be the answer. Next, the maximum velocity with which a car driver must traverse a flat curve of the radius of 150 meter and coefficient of 0.6 to avoid skidding. So to avoid skidding, dependent only on friction, so Fs must be mv square by r, and that should be less than equal to mu s n would be mg. So what we have, the maximum velocity, so that v square should be less than equal to mu s gr you get, so that v max in the limiting case you have as root mu s gr. So what we have, mu s is 0.6, g is 10, radius is 150. So what you have, 15, 6 and 90, 900, so that is 30 meter per second. You can tick option B. Next one. A copper rod is suspended in a non-homogeneous magnetic field region. The rod, when in equilibrium, will align itself in the region because it is a copper rod, and you know copper is a diamagnetic material. So it is suspended in non-homogeneous field, so it will go to the region where the field is weakest. So it will try to be in the region where the field is weakest, and it tries to have it perpendicular to the magnetic field, so which is the option, this is option D, that's a pure theoretical one. So it will align itself where magnetic field is weaker and perpendicular to the direction of magnetic field there. Next, in a meter bridge experiment with a standard resistance in right gap, a resistance coil dipped in water in the left gap, the balancing length is L. If the temperature of the water is increased, the new balancing length is. So what we have, if the temperature is increased, if temperature is increased, that resistance of the coil will increase. So what we have, initial length was L, so what we can say that R is standard upon R of coil. R is standard upon R of coil. Okay, sorry, it was left and right, so I should write it reverse. So R of coil upon R standard, that would be equal to standard resistance L upon 100 minus L. That is what you had. Now what you have, assuming it is in centimeter, now if the resistance increases, it would be R coil dash upon R standard. So because its value will increase, so this L dash upon 100 minus L dash, it will come, and this L dash definitely is going to be increased because it is more resistance. So you can go for option B, no need to write that even. Next one. In the circuit shown in the figure, the cells E1 and E2 have EMF 4 and 8 where they are okay. Internal resistance 0.5 and 1. Then the potential difference across the cells E1 and E2 will be okay. So first of all, let me see what is outside. This is 6 and 3 parallel to 2 and 2 4, 4 and 2.5 6.5, 0.57 and 8. Total resistance is 8, and they are cancelling each other, so current would be like that, and it would be subtraction. The current in the circuit would be E1 minus E2 upon everything I calculated. It came out as 4, 6.5, 7.5 and 8. So that came out as 4 by 8. So 0.5 ampere is the current which is flowing. Now for this cell, we can directly write that V2 terminal would be 8 minus 1 into 0.5 E minus IR, that is you can write as 7.5. So, and for the first one, because it is in the charging mode now, so it would be E plus IR because of that. So it would be 4 plus 1 into 0.5, so it would be greater than 4, it would be 4.5 volt, sorry 4 into 0.5 into 0.5, it is 0.5, so it would be 4.25. So going by this option, it should be option B here. So that is the one thing. One battery is in discharge, one is in the question 9. Electric field is given by E is yi cap plus xj cap. The work done in moving a 1 coulomb charge from Ra 2i plus 2j to Rb 4i plus j. So first of all, this field, what we can make it out, this field is varying, and the variation is somewhat different, but still, let's say because it is electric field, it would be a conservative one. You can also check out if you do del fx by del y and del fy by del x, both are coming as 1, so it is going to be a conservative field. So we can go by any path, work will be same. So let me draw these points first. The first point is 2 comma 2, and the second point is 4 comma 1. It is somewhere here, let's say like this. So in going from, let's say, this A to B, let's say I take this path. First I go like this, and then I go like this. So in this path, the work done by electric field, first thing, the work done by electric field, let's call it C. If I going from A to C, what we see here, x coordinate, y coordinate, x coordinate is fixed, that is 2, and we are going only along y axis, so only the y component, this is going to do work, and this will be constant, that is 2j cap. So the force would be on 1 coulomb charge would be 2j cap Newton, and displacement I am doing is minus 1j cap, so work done is minus 2 joules. Now the work done by electric field from C to B. If I go from C to B, the displacement is along x, so y component won't do work, only x component will do, and this y is constant, this is 1. So this is 1 into 1, so force is 1 into I cap, and I am going in I cap, and the displacement is 2 I cap, so work done is going to be plus 2 joule. So if I add up the net work done is going to be 0, so the work done by field is 0, so the external work will also be 0, so the work required is definitely going to be 0 like this. You can calculate from any path, it would be same because it is a conservative field, so that's an easy way I took. Next, this is question number 9. Now question number 10. A uniformly charged thin spherical shell of radius r carries a uniform surface charge density of sigma per unit area. It is made of two hemispherical shells held together by pressing them with force F. The F is going to be proportional to. So here what we see, because it is a lightly charged, all like charges repel. So these two parts, if I draw, these two parts don't want to come near to them, they are basically repelling each other. So to bring them closer, you have to apply that force. And what is that force? That force basically, if I have to calculate, I know the electrostatic pressure. That electrostatic pressure term you know is equal to sigma square by 2 epsilon naught you derived. So if I do that electrostatic pressure, it would be normal at all the points, and that normal, if I take the projection will come out to be of this circular cross section. So the effective force would be, we can say, would be proportional to sigma by 2 epsilon naught into that area, which is pi r square. So that force, repulsive forces, will be like this. So going by that, the proportionality is going to be sigma square r square by epsilon naught. So going by this, we can go for option A. So this is a very famous question asked in JEE Advanced, I suppose, few years back. AB is a resistance-less conducting rod which forms a diameter of conducting ring of radius r rotating in a uniform magnetic field B as shown in diagram. Resistors R1 and R2 will not rotate. Then the current through resistor R1 is okay. So it is a rod in a uniform magnetic field conducting ring, and ring you can say is rotating like this. The resistors R1 and R2 will not rotate. Then the current through the resistor R1 and R1 is okay, not R1 and R2, only through the R1 is. So because it is rotating like this, we know this rotating rod, there will be basically, you can say, there will be two batteries, one between here and one between here, center and A, one between center and B, but both are in parallel, so EMF would be E, and you know that is equal to the result that you all remember, that is equal to B omega r square by 2. That is what you write, B omega r square by 2. R be the radius, so here radius I am giving as small r, so B omega r square by 2. So that result you already know. Now this is connected between this point, and we know A and B will be at the same potential, so these two will be in parallel. So the R equivalent would be R1 R2 upon R1 plus R2, and because they are in parallel, okay, so no need to calculate this. I can directly say current through 1 would be E upon R1, so it is B omega r square upon 2 R1, not at of 1. So it is option A, that's the first option you will take. Next, a square coil ACDE with its plane vertical is released from rest in a horizontal magnetic field B of length 2L. The acceleration of the coil is, so you know when it comes, this field will oppose its coming, so will exert a force upward, so acceleration will be less than g, and when it would be going down, again it will try to attract it because it don't want to leave it, again it will pull upward, so acceleration is again going to be less than g. So while entering and while leaving, acceleration is going to be less than g, but when it is fully inside, no net change in flux, so no force, in that case acceleration will be g. So it would be less than g all time, no, less than g when it enters and greater than g when it comes out, no, less than g when enters and comes out but equal to g when it is within the field. So that is the most easiest option, and you have done such questions previously, I am pretty sure about it. Next, if g be the acceleration due to gravity at the surface of the earth, the gain of the potential energy of an object of mass m raised from the surface to the height equal to radius r. Again you can directly say delta u is u final, which is minus gmm raised to height h r, that is r plus r, minus minus becomes plus gmm by r. Don't write mgh because height is very high, so taking gmm by r common, it would be 1 minus 1 by 2, so it comes out as 1 by 2 gmm by r, multiply divide by r. This gm by r square is g at surface, so it becomes mg r by 2. Option B you can do. Next, the value of acceleration due to gravity at a depth of 1600 kilometers. So what directly I can recollect, inside the earth's surface g varies linearly. So at capital R it was g at surface, so at 1600 kilometer depth of 1600 kilometer means the gap from center is going to be 3r by 4. So this is 3r by 4. So because it is 3 4, this value will also be 3 4, that is 3 gs by 4. So 3 by 4, that is 7.5 or 7.35 if you take as 9.8. So directly you can do from that proportionality. Otherwise you have those formulas, you can try that out. You have a cylinder of radius r made of a material of thermal conductivity K1 surrounded by a cylindrical shell of inner radius r and outer radius 2r made of thermal conductivity K2. Two ends of the combined system are at two different temperatures. There is no loss of heat across the cylindrical surface. System is in a steady state. The effect of thermal conductivity is. So what you have, this is the first one, this is a solid one, and this is the second one, which is encapsulating it like this. This was the first and this was the second. And these are the two temperatures, let's say T1 and T2, no heat loss from the curved surfaces. So what I can say, this is the first rod and that is the second rod, both are in parallel. So what I can make out, the equivalent resistance would be 1 upon R1 plus 1 upon R. Now R is L upon Ka, so what we will have this is K equivalent into area, which we write as pi into 2R whole square upon L. That would be equal to pi into K1, this is pi R, pi we have written, okay, K1 into pi R square upon L. And this would be K2, and this area would be 2R whole square minus R square. So that would be pi times, let me write it complete, 2R square minus R square, like this upon L. So L and this pi goes, R square also goes. So what we have, 4K equivalent is K1 plus this becomes 3K2. So K equivalent becomes K1 plus 3K2 by 4. So I'll go for option C in this particular case. Next, a mole of an ideal monogas is mixed with 1 mole of a diagas. The value of gamma for the mixture, you must remember this thing. This is 1.5 or 3 by 2. Let me derive it. The formula you use is n1 upon gamma 1 minus 1 is n2 plus n2 upon gamma 2 minus 1 is n1 plus n2 total moles upon gamma equivalent minus 1. So first is 1 upon 5 by 3 minus 1. This is 1 upon 7 by 5 minus 1. This is 1 plus 1 upon gamma equivalent minus 1. So do this, this becomes 3 by 2, this becomes 5 by 2, this becomes 2 upon gamma equivalent minus 1. So 3 plus 5 by 2, that is 8 by 2 or 4. So gamma equivalent minus 1 becomes 2 by 4. So gamma equivalent becomes 1 plus 1 by 2, that is 3 by 2. Go for option A. Next, a Carnot engine has an efficiency of 1 by 6. When the temperature of the sink is reduced by 62 degrees Celsius, its efficiency is double the temperature of the source and sink is. So because it is a Carnot engine, its efficiency is 1 by 6, that is equal to 1 minus Tc by Th. Now, temperature of the sink is reduced by 62, efficiency doubles, that means it becomes 1 by 3 when Tc becomes Tc minus 62, Th remaining the same. So this is what we get. So from the first equation, what I can write, Tc by Th is 5 by 6. From the second, what I can write, Tc minus 62 upon Th is equal to 2 by 3. Divide the both, Th goes. Tc upon Tc minus 62 is, if you do 5 3s are 15 by 12, that is 5 by 4. So 4 Tc is 5 Tc minus 310. So Tc comes out as 310 Kelvin. Remember, this is in Kelvin. So in Celsius, degree Celsius, it would be 37 degrees Celsius. So 37, there is only one option, so Th will also be like that, don't worry. So this is 37 degrees Celsius, and okay, this is of Tc, be sure this is Tc 37 degree, so it would be sink with, so this is that option, not C. Otherwise you would have wasted all your effort. So be careful, read it carefully, don't do this like me. The earth magnetic field at a certain point is 0.70 Gauss. Okay, this field is to be annulled by a magnetic field at the center of a coil of 5 cm in radius. The required current is, so you need field as 0.7 Gauss, that is 0.7 into 10 raised to power minus 4, that is equal to its center, you know, mu naught Ni by 2r. So mu naught Ni by 2r. So n you will take as 1, mu naught by 2 is 2 pi into 10 raised to power minus 7. The current is I, radius is 5 and 10 ki power minus 2. I can write it as 7 and 10 ki power minus 5. So this all powers goes. So I becomes 7 into 5, that is 35 upon 2 pi. So write that pi thing as 22 by 7. No point in that. Write it 3.14 only. So 35 upon it is 6.28. So it would be between 5 and 6. So greatest is most appropriate is 5.6. Go for it. Next. Proton beam passes without deviation through a region of space where there are uniform transverse perpendicular E and B. Then the beam strikes a grounded target. The force imparted by the beam of the target if the beam current is equal to I. So it's a very nice one. So first of all, the speed of the beam would be E by B, that we can make out because it is going without any deviation, you know. Now the force imparted, the force basically you say is the rate of change of momentum, we say. So whenever it is going, it has a beam current is equal to I. So proton beam I, so we can say current is equal to number of protons times the charge. So number of protons striking would be I by E, that is the number of protons, and each proton is striking with a speed v. So this is the number of proton and each having a velocity, a momentum mv. So that would be the answer, I by I mv by E. And what is v? So that is I mv E upon E times b. So going by this options, I think the best one I can make out is A. Next, ABC are points on a vertical line such that AB is equal to BC. If a body is derived from rest at A and T1, T2 are the time to travel AB and BC. So standard results you might be remembering. Let's say I'm derived, let me A to B, B to C. If a body is dropped, so let's say A to B, I write it as H, this is also H. So first of all, let's say this time is given as T1 and this time is given as T2. So first of all, write equation from A to B. Because it is dropped, the displacement H would be equal to half G T1 square. I have taken downward as positive, so T1 is root 2H by G. Now second, I apply direct from A to C, not from B to C. So A to C, the height is 2H and the time as per hour is T1 plus T2 whole square. So what we get, T1 plus T2, we get as we directly you can say is given as 2 times root of T1. If you can make it out, root 2 times of T1. If you do this, because it would be root 4H by G, you can write it as root 2 T1. So from here T2 comes out as root 2 minus 1 times T1. So T2 by T1 is root 2 minus 1. Go for the option B here. Next, body is released from a height and falls freely towards the earth. 1 second later, another body is released. What is the distance between the two bodies? 2 seconds after the release of the second body. So you can do it in many ways. You can do by relative, I am doing without relative. So 2 seconds after the second body, that means of the first body motion time is 3 seconds. So in 3 seconds the height it will fall by would be half G into 3 square, that is 5 into 9, 45 meters. For the second body, because it is in motion for 2 seconds, its height fallen would be half G into 2 square, which you solve as 20 meters. So the gap is 25 meters, and if you take G as 9.8, it would be slightly greater, it would be smaller, sorry, because G would be lesser. So in that case, if I take G as 9.8, let me do this, that H1 minus H2 then would be half G common, 3 square minus 2 square, 9 minus 4, 5, that is 2.5 into G, which is 9.8. So definitely it is less than 28, 25, it would be 24.5 meters. If you try, you can solve it out. Next, the system shown in the figure is in equilibrium and at rest. Spring and string are massless. Now the string is cut. Now this is a very good question. The acceleration of the mass 2 mm just after the string is cut. Just remember, spring has slight inertia, its tension can't change instantly. It will require some time to change. So the spring force will remain as it is. It was just before and just after cutting will be same, while the string tension can change instantly. So this is a very important concept. Now, so as soon as you cut it, it has no one to hold, so it is in free fall, so its acceleration is G downwards, no doubt about it. Now for the 2m, before the string was cut, I can treat them as a system, and it was holding up, so that spring force is holding both of them, so that was equal to 3 mg. Now this string tension has gone. Now in this 2m, as I told, the spring force won't change instantly, it will still remain as 3 mg upwards. Now its weight only remains, because this lower string force has gone, because it has become loose, it will have no tension. So the net force on this 2m block would be upwards, so acceleration would be net force, which is mg divided by 2m, that is g by 2 upwards. So for 2m it is g by 2 upwards, for the lower one it is g downwards. So go for option A. It is a very good question, you should remember this concept. Next one, two masses 10 and 5 are suspended from a rigid support as shown in the figure. System is pulled down with a force of 150 Newton attached to the lower mass. The string attached to the support breaks and the system accelerates downwards. Okay. In case the force continues to act, the tension between the two masses will be. Now here the force is 150, and because this force is 150 and now the string has broken, so if I can make it out what it is going to have. So because of this particular thing, the free body diagram will be like this, 10 and this is 5. So if I take both of them as a system and this force is 150, I can make it out that the acceleration would be 150 plus what I can say it is 10 plus 5. So 10 plus 5 both will have their weights, that would be again 150, and that is 300 divided by 15. So acceleration comes out as 20 meter per second square. So this acceleration is 20 meter per second square. So this blocks are going with an acceleration of 20 meter per second square. So what would be the tension needed here? So tension, if I can apply this T over here, so T plus 100 would be equal to 10 into 20. So T comes out as 100 Newton here. So this is the tension 100 Newton that will act between the two at this junction. Remember one thing, how to check whether the string will remain taut or not? Just see this independently. If it goes independently, its acceleration would be 30 meter per second square, and if it goes together, it would be 20 meter per second square. So it cannot go with 30 meter per second square without this string breaking, because the upper one can't go with this acceleration. So it has to pull that down with him, and therefore the tension will be there, the string will remain taut. Next, a radioactive substance reduces to 1 by 16 of original mass in 40 days. So you know 1 by 16 clear cut, that is 4, T half is 40 days. So T half is 10 and 20, not it is 10 days. Don't do such mistake. So it's quite an easy one, it would be 10 days. Next one. Two nuclei are isotonic, that means same number of neutrons, mass number 15, 16 respectively. A contains 7 protons and number of protons in B would be. So first of all, A contains 7 proton, it is a mass number of 15, therefore neutrons would be 8. And it has 16, number of neutrons in it would be still 8, so the protons in it would be equal to 16 minus 8, that is 8. You can directly go for this option B, very easy one. Next, small mass executes SHM about a point A with amplitude A, time period T. Its displacement from O to time T by 8 after passing through O. So T by 8 in terms of angle, you know, is 45 degree. So if I do it like that, or write it like this, A sin omega t, that would be better for you. So at T equal to T by 8, the value of X would be A sin of 2 pi by T into T by 8, that is sin of pi by 4, that is 1 by root 2. So it goes from 0 to A by root 2. So you can say the displacement would be A by root 2 because it has not turned by this time. It will turn at T by 4 for first time. Next, your pendulum of length L suspended from the ceiling of a cart which is sliding without friction on an inclined plane of theta. What would be the time period of the inclination of the pendulum? So here what we have, this cart is going down this incline. So because it is going down the incline, the cart will have an acceleration g sin theta here. So let me write it as x and let me write it as y. So what I can write, we always write when in an accelerating system we use g effective, which is g minus a of the system. So for the vector g, I can write as per this coordinate, I can write g cos theta j cap plus g sin theta I cap, and the acceleration of this cart is also g sin theta I cap. Just remember, you break mg like this is mg, you took this component mg sin theta here and mg cos theta here, I have done that only. So the acceleration remaining is g cos theta j cap. So the effective g is g cos theta, so the time period would be 2 pi root L by g effective, that would be g cos of theta. So we'll go for option A, that would be the answer in this particular case. Next, the work function of a metal is 1 eV. Light of 3000 angstrom is incident. The velocity of emitted photoelectrons, it should be the maximum velocity, I suppose. So what is energy of photon? That is Hc 1240 eV nanometer. It should be 300 nanometer. So this comes out as 4.13 eV. So the Kmax would be 3.13 eV, I can say. So that is half into 9.1 into 10 raised to power minus 31 into Vmax square is 3.13 into 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 joules. So this Vmax square is 3.13 into 1.6 into 2 upon 9.1 into 10 raised to power 12. So if I do this, 3 to the 6 and 6 into 1.6, it will be roughly of the 9 order. So I can have to just check the order. So this Vmax order, I can make it out, would be 10 to the power 6 meter per second from this. So go for option D in this case. Next, your 100-watt sodium lamp radiates energy uniformly in all direction. It is at the center of a large sphere that absorbs all the sodium light which is incident on it. The wavelength is given. At what rate the photons are associated with the sodium light? So simply it is, you write power as number of photons emitted per second into energy of a single photon. So number of photons would be 100 upon energy of 1. Energy of 1 you can write it as 1240 upon 589. This is in eV, so 1.6 into 10 raised to the power minus 19. So it is 10 to the power 21 into 589 upon 1240 into 1.6 I have to do. So what it would be roughly, so it is 600 roughly, so it would be 2 point something and 1 point something, so it would be 3 point something if I do. So 1 by 3, so it would be 3 into 10 to the power 20, or 4 into 10 to the power, it would be 3 into 10 to the power 20 photons per second. I can make it out. So that is roughly, that is 3 into 10 to the power 20 we will get. So go for option A from this calculation here. Next, water is flowing through a tube of non-uniform area. If the radii of the tube at the entrance and exit are in this ratio, the ratio of velocity is what you can say A1 V1 is A2 V2 continuity equation, or you can say R1 square V1 is equal to R2 square V2. So the ratio V1 by V2 is R2 upon R1 whole square, that is 2 by 3 inverse I have taken square, that comes out as 4:9. This is a very famous question seen almost in all the books. Next one, the bulk modulus of an incompressible. Incompressible means its volume won't change, so bulk modulus is going to be infinite. It's like a rigid body's Young's modulus is infinite. Incompressible fluid has a bulk modulus infinite. When a monolight incident on a medium of refractive index mu with angle incidence theta I, the angle of refraction is theta r. If theta I is slightly changed by delta theta I, then the corresponding change in theta r will be. Now this is very interesting one. So what we can do, Snell's law says is incident on a medium of refractive index mu. So I can directly say 1 into sine theta I would be equal to mu times sine of theta r. That is what we can say. So what we can say, for small changes, if I have to do this and differentiating it, what I can make out, cos theta I d theta I would be equal to mu times cos theta r dr. I can directly d theta r, I can make it out. So for the slight change delta theta I, so d theta r would be cos theta I upon mu cos theta r into d theta I. So going by this, you can make it out. What would be the option? This is coming out as option C in this particular case. So not that tough one, just you have to be very careful how to relate the change. Ray of light strikes a transparent slab of index root 2 at an angle of incidence 45 degree. The angle between the reflected and refracted rays is okay. Strikes a transparent slab. Let's say this is a slab, it strikes like this. It strikes at an angle 45 degree. So for the reflected light, you know this would be 45 for sure, and the light which goes, because it goes into denser, it will bend towards the normal, so it would be r. So what I will write, 1 into sine 45 is root 2 into sine of r. So 1 by root 2 is root 2 sine of r. So you make out sine r is half. Sine r half means r is 30 degree. So this is 30 degree, this is 45 degree. So what would be the angle? It would be 180 minus 45 minus 30, that is 180 minus 75. So it is 105 degree. I can make it out. This would be option D in this particular case, 105. Next one. The mi of a body is I and the coefficient of linear expansion is alpha. If the temperature rises by delta T, the change in mi about the same axis. You know mi is proportional to r square type of thing. So for small changes, delta I by I is twice of delta r by r, and delta r by r you know is alpha delta T. So it would be 2 alpha delta T. So delta I by I is 2 alpha delta T. So delta I would be 2i alpha delta T. So I'll go for option B here. Next. Remember, mass doesn't change due to heating here. A force of minus Fk cap acts at O, origin of the coordinate system. Torque about the point is. So simply torque is position vector of the point at which torque is acting about the point whom torque is to be acted. So here when I will write r cross f, what would be that r? That is r of origin with respect to that would be 0 minus 1 I cap plus 0 minus minus, that is plus 1 j cap. So it is minus I cap plus j cap. So torque would be minus I cap plus j cap, taking the cross with minus f k cap. So minus minus become plus, I cross k is minus, so again minus we will have. So minus f j cap, and then what you will have, j cross k is I, so that is minus f I cap. So it is minus f j cap minus f I cap. So going by this, it should be option C here. Next, silicon specimen made into a p-type by on an average 1 indium per 5 into 10 to the power 7 atoms. If the number density is 5 into 10 to the power 28, so you can directly say that the dopant density would be 5 into 10 to the power 28 divided by 5 into 10 to the power 7, that is 10 to the power 21 atoms per meter cube, very high. Then the number of acceptor atoms in silicon per cubic centimeter, I have directly calculated, it is 1 into 10 to the power 21, I have taken it. So going by this, if there are any option, I am not finding any option per cubic centimeter. Okay, so they have taken us for a ride. It is atom per meter cube, so per centimeter cube it would be factor of 10 to the power minus 6, so it would be 10 to the power 15 if you do for 1 centimeter cube, because 1 meter cube is 10 to the power 6 centimeter cube. Okay, next, in the given circuit, the current through the battery. Now look at the circuit. Look at the battery polarity. It is forward biased. It will work like a wire. It won't work. It will work like a wire. So this 8 ohm branch is no effective. So effective circuit that is effective is 16 volt. This would be 16 ohm, and this would be coming like this, and this would be 4 ohms, and this 4 ohms will now effectively come in series with that 4, and this is this 8 won't coming. This is 16. So 4 and 4 is 8. 8 and 16 in parallel. So our equivalent is 16 into 8 upon 16 plus 8, which is 24, that is 16 by 3 ohms. So the current through the battery would be 16 upon 16 by 3, that is 3 ampere. So go by option C. Just simplify the circuit using your basic analysis, you can do that. Next, beaker has 100 gram of water at 90 degree, another 600 at 20 degree was poured. The temperature of the water after mixing, this question came in JEE Main as integer 1, numerical answer 1. What you will do, 100 was at 90 and this is at 20, let's say final temperature is T. So this loses, how much it loses? 100 gram into specific heat into lose would be initial minus final. And it gains, how much it gains? 600 gram into specific heat into, it would be T minus 20. So this all thing get cancelled, this 2 zeros also get cancelled. So 90 minus T is 60 minus 120. So what you have, 210 equal to 70, so T automatically comes out as 30 degrees Celsius. And if you are following my Telegram group, I posted this question as a question of the day about 1 or 2 days back. Now, the density of the material in the CGS system of units is 4 gram per centimeter cube. In a system of units in which unit of length is 10 centimeter and unit of mass is 100 gram, the value of density of the material will become. So here unit of length will become 10 centimeter and the unit of mass becomes 100 gram. The value of new density will be. So now what you will have, this is 4 gram per centimeter cube. So in the new unit, this 1 gram will become 1 by 100 of the unit, and this centimeter cube, because centimeter has become 1 by 10, so it will become 1 by 10 of this cube. That is what you will have. So it would be 4 into, if you do that permutation combination, there is 1000 by 100, so it would be 40 now. So the value would be 40 in the new unit, you can make it out. Next, unpolarized light passes through two polarized axes. Of one is vertical, that of the other is 30 to the vertical. What is the orientation and intensity of the transmitted light? First one is unpolarized, so after first the intensity becomes half, and because both are having an angle 30 degrees, so the after second one it will become cos square 30 factor again, so half into 3 by 4, so it would be 3 by 8. So it would be finally plane polarized at 32 degree to the vertical and having an intensity of 3 I naught by 8. First one becomes half, second one makes it 3 by 4th of half, so it would be 3 by 8. Next one, two light sources are coherent. Basic definition: for them to be coherent, their frequencies must be same and their phase difference should remain stable with time. So option D, there's no doubt about it. That is needed for YDSC, otherwise you won't observe any interference fringes anywhere. Figure shows the location of a source and a detector. This is location at t equal to 0. Source goes with 5 I cap, detector by 10 J cap. Frequency of the signal received by the detector at the moment when the source crosses the origin is. So when it is crossing the origin, okay, because it is 10 and it is 5, when it would be crossing the origin, it would be here now. This would be at 100 meters here, it would be going with a speed 10 here, and this is going with a speed 5 here. Okay, so the frequency of signal received by detector at the moment. So if I check it, we know for Doppler what is important is the velocity components along the line joining. So this 5 has no component along the line joining, so simply we have the case detector going away. So the frequency heard would be f0, source speed won't be any mattering because it is no component along that, and I can directly say because it is going away, it would be v minus v of the detector. So it is f0 is 100, and this is 330 minus 10 over 330. So it is 100 into 32 by 33, that is what I can make it out. So it would be slightly less than 100, so won't be very much less, so I'll go for 97 Hertz directly. Next, an iron load of 2 kg is suspended in the air from the free end of a sonometer wire of length 1 meter. Your frequency 256 Hz is in resonance with time, the length of the sonometer wire. If the load is immersed in water, then what will be the resonance with the same tuning fork? Okay, then what will be in resonance? Okay, I think it should be length, it should be asking, I suppose. So the frequency, the length, the frequency we say is v by 2l, so it is inverse to length, or root t by l, you write basically, because the mu will remain the same. So with the same tuning fork, f will be same, so root t by l must be same. So initially the t is mg, so root mg by l naught would be equal to, in the new case it would be root mg 1 minus rho f by rho b upon this L. So the new L will become L naught into this, if I take it is root of 1 minus rho f by rho b. So it is L naught, you are given the specific gravity, so rho f by rho b is 1 by 8, so it is L naught root of 7 by 8, I can make it out. So root of 7 by 8 times L naught, that is what we can make it out. So what we are left with, this is 7 by 8. Which option? For me, no option is coming, and if I see the solution, it is assuming the initial length was 1 by root 7. So if initial length was 1 by root 7, it will become 1 by root 8 in that case, but I can't find it in the question, so there should be some printing error, I suppose, so leave it now. 44th, if a body has a kinetic energy T moving on a rough horizontal surface, stops at a distance y, the frictional force exerted on the body is, okay. So body has kinetic energy T moving on a rough horizontal surface, stops at a distance y, the frictional forces. So what I can say, the work done by friction F into y is dissipating, also minus minus would be like this. So the friction force you can directly say would be T by y. So it's a very straightforward question of work energy theorem. Next, last one. Your body of mass 3 kg acted upon by a constant force is displaced by s meter, given by s is t square by 3, okay, where t is in second, work done by the force in 2 seconds would be, so directly you can say work done by the would be delta k, that is half m v square minus u square. So let's assume u to be 0, you have to find the velocity at t equal to 2 seconds. How you can find the velocity at 2 seconds? Just v is ds by dt. Do this is 2t by 3, so at t equal to 2 it is 4 by 3, so half m is 3 into 4 by 3 whole square. So it is 3 by 2 into 16 by 9, so this is 8 and this is 3, so it is 8 by 3 joules, so go for option A. So that was today's paper. Actually I was in a hurry today because I have to sleep, because I have to go out of station early morning tomorrow, so tomorrow, no it's today now. So that was, I was in a pressure to complete it fast because I have to do this JEE main paper also before sleeping today. So please, it might be faster one today. So thanks for watching. Keep watching. Thank you.